Hi, I'm Mitra Sorrells, senior reporter at PhocusWire, and I am delighted to be your host for today's New Reality With. This series of one-to-one interviews with industry leaders is sponsored by Salesforce. You can reopen travel with support from Salesforce's Work.com. For this episode, we welcome Jennifer Wilson-Buttigieg. She is co-president and owner of Valerie Wilson Travel, one of the largest privately owned and family-managed travel consulting firms in the United States. Jennifer, welcome. We're so glad you could join us today.
Mitra, it's an honor to be here.
So let's jump right in. There's a lot to discuss, certainly. First, give us a bit of a sense of what things are like for you. I know you work out of the New York area, live and work out of that area. Give us a quick sense of what life is like for you.
Absolutely. I live about 20 miles north of Manhattan. New York City is our corporate headquarters. We have about 15 offices around the country. 14 of them have been open, which we're fortunate, but New York is a different kind of animal right now. And quite honestly, the consumer confidence hasn't been there to even allow our travel advisors to be able to come back into the office. We've been fully open, but we've been remote since mid-March.
It's really interesting. So I'm curious, are you using any sort of technology in different ways to showcase travel options, destinations, and things? I mean, even, we hear about virtual reality, different things.
Absolutely. I actually want to back up one quick second because New York today, this morning was 9/11 and the remembrance. And I think travel and hospitality and tourism always thought of 9/11 as sort of the worst possible that could happen to travel and tourism. I see it as our opportunity to never forget and as the ability to remind us how resilient travel really is. No one envisioned a pandemic. We all had our playbooks. We all had our plans. We're 6 months into this, and many of us just want to pull our hair out because we don't know where we're going. Yes. So specifically, in terms of technology, absolutely. We pivoted incredibly quickly. I was so proud of our team. Yes, we had the plan in place and the protocols, but 48 hours after the decision was made to close New York City, we were fully functional. We use Zoom meetings. Everyone's probably Zoom fatigued at the moment. We're doing virtual town halls. Communication has been key. So every Tuesday afternoon, we do a town hall with all of our employees and associates. We have done a client series of events where we brought in some of our top hotel travel partners to get it firsthand so our customers, when they're ready and if they're ready, they want to hear. Technology in many different ways. Instead of a weekly airline visit, we're doing virtual sales calls. Instead of a travel fest or client event where we bring several hundred people together in a ballroom at a hotel, where we have the traveler, the advisor, and the supplier, we're starting to do that virtually. So yes, technology in so many ways.
I'm curious, I know it's hard to predict the future, certainly in this very uncertain time, but do you envision some of those things sticking around long after, when maybe life returns a bit more to normal, that there's still value in keeping some of that virtual?
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a wonderful blend of both. I'm a road warrior myself. The thought of going to an airport, getting on a plane, watching the plane go up through the clouds, interacting with new people will definitely come back at some point when consumer confidence comes back. But we should also learn from what's been incredibly successful now. I want to use one example that with airlines and weekly sales calls, which we're very fortunate to have because of our size and scale and our former type of client, which used to be 75% international and 70% front of the plane. So people wanted to invest in our customers. They've been able to reach so many of our home-based associates, so many of our home-based advisors that they never had the opportunity to get to before. So I hope that connectivity definitely stays.
So, and we'll get back a bit to that about your clientele and maybe some of the changes there in a moment. But let's step back for a minute. I know your mother founded the agency, correct, in 1981? I understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've heard for a while, we hear talk or rumblings about the potential death of the traditional travel agent or the travel agent. Your agency had its biggest growth in its history in 2019, I understand. $325 million in sales. Tell us a little bit, thinking back, what was behind that growth?
I think it again, multifaceted. Valerie, I call her Val, my mom, started the business almost 40 years ago with the desire to provide exceptional customer service. We actually lived overseas in London as a family in the late 70s, and she couldn't find a travel provider. So the classic entrepreneur to fill a need that was present has remained through the core of our values throughout. So quite honestly, we do have business plans and strategic goals, but it's one-to-one relationships. At the end of the day, we're in a service-based business, and we love operating sort of in that top right-hand corner for both corporate and leisure and meetings and incentives and fulfillment. So when some people think about being a niche or a specialist in one country or one area, that's absolutely fine. We decided we wanted to play in the luxury space, and we've been incredibly successful with that. 2019 was our best year. January, we held an academy where we again brought suppliers and advisors together, and it was a huge success. Nobody ever thought what was going to happen with the pandemic in February. And fortunately, based on relationships, we've been able to maintain a lot of the strategic plans we had in place. You had a second point there, Mitra. You wondered about travel advisors and was it a dying breed? Absolutely not. We have had a program called Associate Access for entrepreneurs and career changers in place, and we're actually double downing on it right now. We have the ability to have a 12-month training program to teach them our relationships, but we want them to be career changers. We've been incredibly successful, for instance, with retiring lawyers. So I believe travel and luxury travel will absolutely come back, and this is a very viable career path for people.
So it sounds like you're really kind of setting up the foundation there to have everything in place, as travel starts to pick up again. I'm curious, give us a bit more of a sense of your thoughts on how long it may take and what it will take for Valerie Wilson Travel to get back to those 2019 levels.
It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of grit. It's going to take a lot of hard work. And I really want to sort of focus on a couple things because it's not just what Valerie Wilson Travel can do. It's what we need in the travel agency channel. It's what we need in travel and tourism overall. We need testing. We need rapid testing. And without rapid testing, we're not going to get that consumer confidence back. And without consumer confidence, as many articles and interviews and dreaming and initiatives we can put in place, we as travel advisors or our partners, our airline partners, our cruise partners, our hotel partners, none of that's going to happen without the consumer confidence. And we can plan. We've pivoted incredibly fast where we took strategic goals, and we've been able to announce 4 or 5 new partnerships this summer, alliances, with programs like GeoSure for testing, a global testing on an app for a customer to know where they feel safe. We are very proud of an announcement that we made with Men's Vows, the online network for LGBTQ and branching into travel. I know there's always the question that we can get to later on online. We actually are a partner with TripAdvisor and Reco. So we really used the last 6 months as an opportunity to say what worked, what didn't, and actually move forward with all of the initiatives that we had in place. It's hard. We have less staff. We've laid people off. We have reduced hours. VWT is still about 90% down on business, which is why I go back to sort of those top 3 things that over the next 30 minutes or so, I want to be able to delve into testing and consumer confidence.
So let's talk a little bit about that and specifically about your clientele. So if I understand correctly, traditionally or pre-COVID, I guess we'd say, your agency was split almost equally corporate travel and leisure, a little bit more toward the corporate travel. There is, of course, a sense that that's going to be the slowest and have the most prolonged recovery for a variety of reasons and may only get back to a fraction of its previous volume because of things like this that we're doing now with Zoom. Do you agree with that? And how do you manage that changing environment for corporate travel?
Travel in general has always evolved. I sort of, again, think back to, I hate to say before 9/11, shuttle was like our number 1 domestic city pair. New York, Boston, New York, Washington. After 9/11, everybody pivoted. You could drive, you could take the train, other markets came into play. I think corporate travel will come back. I do think it will absolutely probably be the slowest, but it goes to several key things. if we can't even figure out how to get our employees into our own office, how are we going to feel comfortable to send our employees to someone else's offices, even if it's one of our top clients? I think there's a liability issue that's out there. I think corporations worry very much about their employees and their teams. So it goes back to consumer confidence, which goes back to testing.
Okay, so let's talk now a little bit about that more consumer leisure segment. You touched on the fact that you have always really been in that luxury space and a lot of international. First of all, what are you hearing from those clients now?
They were very fortunate. Our marketing team has done client surveys since the very beginning, and we share that information with our preferred partners. It really falls into two camps. We have clients that have actually traveled the summer. We have clients all over the globe. So someone might take a local trip from the Northeast up to Maine, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont. Someone on the West Coast might have gone to Tetons or Napa. And in Europe, people actually did get back to travel. So guests in the UK who live in the UK went up to Scotland and other places like that. So travel is occurring. Travel is possible, but travel is very different. And I think what people, travelers, consumers, anyone in this ecosystem need to understand is we have to have a much clearer sense of what it entails. We need to understand, do we need to be quarantined? Do we need to test? Do we need what type of test to go? We need to have accurate information to be able to better understand and pivot. We had guests wanting to go to Turks and Caicos, and 2 days before they were going to leave, U.S. citizens weren't allowed there. It's like a puzzle. I'm a big puzzler, so I've done 5 1,000-piece puzzles in the last 6 months. I think that explains a lot about my personality. I like to connect things. I like to solve things. For our industry to be able to move forward, we need to solve testing. And I wear many different hats. VWT is one of them. ASTA is another one with the American Society of Travel Advisors. And we really need to be able to have immediate testing, and then we'll be able to go places.
Okay, so let's talk about that a bit more. How does that happen? How do you, and if you could plan it out, you're in charge of this, what does that look like for testing?
I love the question. In the United States, last night was the opening of the NFL season. So many people have lost so much over the last few months. We're looking for some sort of normalcy. The NFL tests everybody, every player, every front of house, every back of house, every coach, everyone in the stadium. We won't know for a couple days if that was successful. But if the NFL can do it, I don't know why ASTA can't, the Department of Transportation, bring the airlines together, even start to bring the G20 together to say, what are the standards? And I'm going to use a couple of examples here. Because again, before 9/11, we never took our shoes off. People actually forget and equate that, which is why I stated it. It wasn't after 9/11 we started taking our shoes off. That was after the shoe bomber and the underwear bomber. And over 19 years, we blended together. Was it 9/11? Was it 01? Was it 09? We need, on a global basis of where international travel is going to start to come back, maybe start with the UK, maybe start with the EU. We need to be able to say, what are the must-haves? And for me, that would be accurate, simple, easy testing to be able to have the test, go to the airport, hop on a plane, and fly. It's contact tracing that occurs in Asia very well. So we know if you have been near somebody.
Do you have any thoughts, what's the most efficient way to really make that happen? Is it a government-run type of program, do you think? Is it a privately run program? And I'm also wondering, is there value in trying to get the testing done before someone ever leaves their home? Ideally, they're not walking into an airport.
That's what I was actually meaning. In the morning, before you leave, before you go to school, before you get on the train, before you go to work, before you go to an airport, before you enter a hotel or board a ship, it would become one of those new processes and procedures. I would like to think the government could do it, and I'm not about to have a political conversation. I need the U.S. government and other governments to recognize the value of tourism and travel. 1 in 10 jobs are tied to this industry. We desperately need help. So I would hope it would be government authorities saying what are protocols that need to go in place. But I think private sector has always been able to move a little faster. I'm a big one for competition in the marketplace. I would love to see what people come up with, but without these steps and people focusing on this right now, it's not the vaccine. I've had the opportunity to listen to The Great Influenza on Audible recently with my husband. And 102 years later, we're basically in the same position. I was a history major a long time ago. I would encourage everybody to read or listen to John M. Barry, Great Influenza. Even if you just listen to the afterword, it gives us the opportunity to say, this we can control and this we can't control. It's a medical issue, which is going to become a financial issue.
Okay, well, sounds like we could have our whole discussion related to that specific aspect of our topic. But let's move on to a few other things, because I know there's a lot that I want to talk to you about.
And maybe we come back to that at a different time, because sure. I think we are far more of a global society than ever before, which is why this did spread so quickly, right. So much faster than it did 102 years ago. I think there are some great lessons that can be learned here. But let's get back to travel and what we want to talk about.
So, one of the themes that we've been hearing quite a bit about is that due to the closures, due to the shelter-in-place restrictions, consumers in general have become much more comfortable with digital platforms to manage every aspect of their life, keeping in touch with family, doing their shopping, you name it. I saw a McKinsey statistic that said COVID-19 has been an accelerant that has advanced 10 years of U.S. e-commerce growth in 90 days. So I'm wondering what the implications are of that for travel, and the fact that we will now have many more people wanting to do the DIY online, that type of a platform.
Great question. It sort of reminds me of when the internet, the World Wide Web sort of came about, and we thought travel agents and travel advisors were going to go away. I absolutely think it's the inverse. I think it is great that customers and travelers want to go online and do their research, want to help start to vet what they think they want to do. But at the end of the day, the role of the advisor today is more important than ever, both to the actual traveler, because we're your advocate. You no longer just need to decide, do you need a real ID, driver's license, or a visa or a passport? You have to understand quarantining, and you need to understand what your comfort level for that is. We have amenities. We have programs where you can do it yourself online. We can give you the exact same rate, but you're probably going to get a breakfast or an upgrade with that. Those amenities and opportunities for the future are out there, but I don't think people are necessarily ready yet, because they're still just starting to say, what am I comfortable with? If you're not comfortable going to work yet, I doubt you're going to be comfortable going on a business trip or going far away on a leisure trip.
So do you believe, it sounds to me like certainly Valerie Wilson Travel has, been obviously very smart about this, and you've started to put a lot of things in place to be successful for many, many years into the future. But do you think overall that coming out of COVID, the retail travel agent marketplace can remain at the size that it was and can be as healthy as it was?
I think there's going to be change not only in travel and the travel channel and the agency channel. I think there's going to be consolidation. People need to recognize that most industries were incredibly successful up until about February of 2020. 6 months later, most of these businesses have had no revenue. Most people don't even understand the compensation model of travel, where you make a booking now, you might on a hotel get paid 30, 60 days after the guest leaves. This is a conversation not just about travel, but it's about cash. It's cash is king. It's restaurants, it's gyms, it's bowling alleys, it's museums, it's anything tied to tourism, travel, entertainment in a very broad way. Will there be consolidation? There's always consolidation. There's consolidation after any crisis. You look back, and I fortunately or unfortunately have, it's called trends by disaster. So I sort of looked at, it was 8 months after 9/11. It was 6 months after SARS and MERS. It was closer to a year and a half after the 2008 financial crisis. So we have things in place for business being down. No business plan has an opportunity out there to say, sure, I'm going to be down 90% for 6 months as of now. I'm still alive, still survived. But we don't know what the runway on that is. There's no end game. So consolidation will always occur. Businesses are built for different reasons. I look at it less about the big getting bigger. I worry about that small boutique hotel. I worry about that family-owned restaurant. I worry about that small museum that has great treasures for people to see that may not be able to reopen until all of this consumer confidence comes back.
Okay, and we actually have a question from our viewers right now. Jennifer, how do you see vendors reaching out to agents? I know Zoom is a great tool, but nothing replaces the face-to-face.
Agree. Nothing replaces the face-to-face. And I can't wait to give someone a firm handshake or a hug. This elbow thing is really unfulfilling for me. I think it's going to change. And I don't know if we're going to have a lot of suppliers back in our conference rooms in our various offices or client event until we can test. I think our suppliers are also having a huge issue financially for budgeting to have their salespeople on the road. I think we need to connect with different ways. One of my recommendations would be pick a restaurant, do a gift card, start doing a drink on a Zoom basis or a coffee on a Zoom basis or a breakfast on a Zoom basis with some of your top customers. Make small focus groups. One-to-one in cities where you can get out and socially distant. Being front of mind is absolutely key. I think many of our travel partners also recognize that they've had to have huge layoffs within their own sales force. So the travel agency channel is actually an extension of their sales force and eager to make bookings.
So we have another question from the audience. It says, Jennifer, you mentioned cash is king in the flow of revenue around the business. Does what we're going through now put pressure on our business models to change because of the inherent risks?
Absolutely. There are always going to be risks, and evolution, there's always going to be change. I think education here is the key. It's understanding how the mechanisms have worked in the past, that if you are fortunate and there was any type of commission paid still, it was usually at time of travel. Does that work in an environment when there is very little travel? I talk to executives, C-level from around the globe right now, and pockets are coming back, particularly China, but most businesses are down, and the TSA numbers showed it over Labor Day. We usually have 3 million travelers on Labor Day, and we had just under a million. We're still over 60% off. Yeah. We need to slowly restart this engine. I'm very proud of several companies that are starting to pay commission up front. I work with preferred partners in terms of even change of simple policies. With 15 offices, we still have checks in other offices. When we went fully remote, why can't a supplier be mandated to be preferred to pay with an ACH or a wire transfer? But I'll take it a step further, but change the process so you can document it very clearly. I think there are lots of opportunities for change here.
Okay, so let's dive in a bit about some of the kind of specific sectors of travel. So, of course, let's talk about cruise. What, was one of the first that we started hearing some of the issues as things were developing in Asia, and then it started to ripple around the globe. What do you think is the fate of that sector? And then also, what about the distribution model for cruise? Do you envision that changing?
All great questions. Some people are cruisers, others are not. It was one of the fastest growing segments of the travel industry, with new ships coming out and planned to come out in 2020, 21, and 22. I think cruising will absolutely come back, because if you're a diehard cruiser and you want to know your entire price is paid with pack and unpack, that segment will. I think in the short term, river cruises will do exceedingly well because it's a smaller environment. There's the perception, and a lot of this is perception. How can we best educate people? The cruise industry took really bad media hits early on. They kept playing that same video over and over again. I'm incredibly proud of several cruise lines like Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, where they're coming up with new safety protocols, not just for their own brand, but across brands. Many of them are talking about, you will be tested 24 hours before you board a ship. And if you know everybody on that ship has been tested, you can start to go explore the world. In terms of agency network and agency channels, I think we remain one of the cruise industry's best sales forces.
But do you envision that potentially changing, back to that point about consumers getting more comfortable with technology and doing things themselves? I mean, that's been one of the last areas that has been more of a DIY model.
Really, no. I've been on many different types of cruise ships, fortunately, over the years. You really need to know what deck you want to be on. Do you want a large ship? Do you want a small ship? Do you want the ability to stay on board, or do you want to get off and explore? As with travel, it's about the experience. It's about finding out what you're looking to do. And hotel rooms are different. You have suites and you have rooms and you have beachfront, oceanfront, etc. Cruise lines are very different, not only in square footage, but balconies, no balconies, deck levels, etc. I still think you will always have some people who book it online, and that's fine. I think the majority of cruise business will continue to come from the travel agency channel.
So let's talk a bit about, again, your luxury, primarily international client.
I miss them. I can't wait for them to come back.
Yeah. So we've heard that a good portion of the luxury bookings right now are focused on very private experiences, charter planes, hotel buyouts, yachts. While at the same time, on the flip side, you have a lot of people out of work. You have a lot of economic distress. Does this potentially mark, coming out of COVID, a return to a more exclusive environment overall for the travel industry, and, shifting away from the concept that everyone can travel and vacation?
I hope not. For me, travel is one of the best opportunities to see the world, meet different people, try different foods, learn different histories, and broaden your horizon as an individual. I think it would be really sad if the short term limits people to travel. I'm not looking at 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. Travel will come back. People have the desire. It is part of their budget process. It's part of who they are at the core, to want to connect with friends and family, to want to celebrate a milestone, birthday or anniversary, to see something different. So I'm definitely as a half glass full kind of girl, and I believe people want to get back out there. Short term, yes, people want to feel safe, and it's hard to define safe, and I encourage people never to define safe or risk, because it's personal tolerance. People may want a suite, people may want a villa, people may want a property takeover, people may want to try to cocoon themselves. And that's fine. There are people and companies like myself and Valerie Wilson Travel that can certainly help with that. But I don't think travel is going to become only exclusive. I think that would be very sad, honestly, for us as a society.
So I think I read somewhere that an article that you had been quoted in, or maybe you had written yourself, where you said that you see opportunities for growth in things like sustainable travel, bleisure, that phrase that we hear quite a bit, and then also in the millennial and Gen Z demos. Can you talk a bit about those opportunities and how you plan to move in those directions?
All of them are important. Bleisure, I used to do it myself. I had a business trip, a meeting. I'd be able to play a round of golf. My husband or grown son would meet us. I don't think the bleisure is coming back until the confidence is coming back. I think if someone is going to go on a business trip, they're going to tactically go on a business trip, decide if they need to quarantine or not. What does that mean when you come back home? Again, we need to figure out the testing. We need to figure out quarantining. We need to rebuild that confidence. So bleisure probably would be a little lower on the list. Okay. Gen Z, absolutely, wants to get out and explore. Travel has, in general, been very much a part of their lives and connecting, but I think it's learning to do it safely. It may not be right now a large event, but you can go to dinner, you still can have an experience, you wear your mask, you know who you're with. What we're seeing customers do is find 2 couples that they're comfortable with, or 4 family members, and they're just sort of starting to poke their head out of that hole and say, we're all going to get tested and we're going to have a great Labor Day, or we're starting to plan for Thanksgiving. Or we see people who, students are studying, smaller children are studying online, and they're saying, why don't I go up to the Cape and take a week off? There is no end game for this right now. There is no deadline. There's no end goal that we're running towards. So I think people are starting to look at it to say, do I need a change of scenery? Do I really miss that person and want to go see them?
As you look at some of those younger demos, is there anything that you're doing or starting to think about doing as far as your customer acquisition in that area?
Absolutely. We've been very fortunate. For the better part of 4 decades, word of mouth and customer referral is the number one way, because it's not someone just looking for one thing. It's a relationship, much like you have with your doctor, your dentist, your lawyer. They know what your needs are. We know where they've been in the past. And these first trips are often to places where people had great memories and feel comfortable and want to go back to some kind of simpler plan. There's not a formal marketing campaign, quite honestly. We have done a millennial task force. We do have some really cool tools where I would say we have a brand new interactive website with a lot of video, a lot of content. People want to know that they can partially plan it on their own, but then they come to us to have it vetted. Is the hotel open? Do they have 30% staff? Is the beach open? We have a COVID tracker plan where if people's tickets needed to be exchanged for the future, there's actually a template that we branded VWT's Power of Access COVID tracker. We are also working with customers right now to say what's on that wish list. And as part of Virtuoso with Wanderlist, it's an interactive app where you can start to create your bucket list or wish list with other people. That's a totally interactive tool for millennials.
Okay, we do have another audience question. Do you think agencies will reduce their office space and have agents working from home, especially in areas like New York and LA where rentals are so expensive and agents can do a great job from their home office?
Something I think about and worry about every night, quite honestly. We have about 30,000 square feet in Manhattan, beautiful offices, very much at the core of who we are as a consulting firm. I think we need to look short-term and long-term. I still believe cities are going to come back, and maybe I take a perspective from history. In the short term, no, people don't want to ride subways and buses and trains, and that's a reality right now. If we had a better handle on testing, that confidence to do simple things like go get your morning coffee, hop on a train, say hello to the people you walk past, walk into that office and have that connectivity. I don't think it'll be all one way or the other.
Bit of a blend.
I assure you we will always have an office and a headquarters, but we've learned we can do so much remotely as well. So I think it's a blend.
Okay. So let's get back. You referenced at the beginning that you are working with TripAdvisor on their RICO program, which is something that just launched this summer, I believe, in I think June. They're giving travelers access.
That was one of our 6 initiatives.
Okay, so it's just a quick summary of what that is. It's travelers can get access to a trip designer for a flat fee of $199, and they get the itinerary planning, the hotel and activity bookings, restaurant recommendations, and then also kind of unlimited communication chat before and during the trip. So tell me a little bit about your involvement with that, the strategy behind your decision to get involved with it and what you see as the potential there.
First of all, I think it's great that companies like TripAdvisor recognize that some people want vetted numbers, some people want to be able to connect digitally, but at the end of the day, travel is so personal that you need an advocate. You need an advisor to help guide you through this process. I think it's a total stamp of approval for the travel channel to be able to say fees are important, pay for expertise, and they put it out there in a very public way. They are not going consortia, one of the large compendium of members that exist out there. They are going to individual agencies and independent contractors. What I believe they're trying to do is actually leverage expertise. They realize they could build the app, and that's great, but they can't build a network of individual experts. So I applaud them. As with any new project, we're just starting. I'm very lucky. My sister, my co-president, my co-owner, Kimberly Wilson-Weddy, is actually spearheading that project. And she gave me a couple talking tips on it yesterday because I thought that might come up. I think there's something very different between embracing the role of the advisor, where this question came from you before, from supplier role, cruise role. We're an extension of those brands. We are their booking tool. Very different from just online. It's not a transaction. It's not just a transaction. It's an experience.
Yeah, I'll be curious to stay in touch and maybe see how that develops and what you see coming through that. Be very interesting. We have another question for you. What would you say is the biggest pain point in the travel experience for your customers that still needs to be fixed? And how would you fix it if you had the opportunity?
I don't want to sound like a broken record. We don't have that consumer confidence. People are not comfortable to say, I want to go away for Thanksgiving. I want to go away for Christmas. I need to get on a plane to go to London to see a corporate client. We got to fix testing. And I implore any C-level individual at any hotel, cruise line, airline, tour company, travel management firm to start bringing us together with several of the trade organizations in our country and others, whether it's WTTC, to say we need a protocol. We need a baseline to say we have to test.
So, and let's also look at that question, if you could, kind of pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You know, clearly
Absolutely.
There's a lot of issues that need to be fixed right now because of what's happened with COVID. But even going back, separate from vaccine issues and confidence,
Mm-hmm.
as you think about your clients' experience, was there a consistent point or theme that you saw coming up that was maybe frustrating or, you know, less seamless than it could be?
Right. There'll always be, it's travel. There will always be things that frustrate people. I think it's recognizing what you can control and can't control. I think the things you can't control, weather, riots and revolutions and things like that, as I often say, that are disruptors, where that advisor is here to help that traveler and help the supplier. I think there are pockets, and I may be a hair too specific on this, but there are pockets that could change in the commission collection process, in who owns the customer, of who markets to the customer with or without approval. And I'm not talking GDPR. I think there are opportunities to recognize that travelers want a hybrid. They want to be able to, it doesn't have to be all online or all agent or advisor assisted. I think when the economy is good, and it was really good, everybody was focused on, I have too many clients, I can't service everybody. I think this is a pause. It's an opportunity to reflect on what we did well. And I would use the example, VWT is picking preferred partners that have the same goals, that recognize we need to be profitable, that we are a viable business. But there are probably some tweaks along the way, like the ACH one I gave with specific information, or not accepting being paid 90 days after the fact. That's just a start. There are so many things, but great question.
Yeah, for sure. Here is another question. How can hotels continue their relationship with travel agencies? Are virtual meetings enough? How can we go the extra mile for them to support them and show them we're there for them as well in this new reality?
Fantastic question. I was part of a YPO, WEBE, because we're a Woman Business Enterprise certified, with a idea hack 2 weeks ago. And there were 2 or 3 key points I'd bring out. You probably can't look on a brand level. Loyalty matters, but individual properties in local areas should be reaching out to their travel partners to say, if there's a weather disruption, which there have been a lot of those, think of that local hotel to go to stay in, to eat at, to charge their phones. You should be thinking this fall about the Jewish holidays, about Thanksgiving, about Christmas, about New Year's, to say people may not feel comfortable getting together in their homes. Could you do catering? Some people are tired of cooking 5 nights a week. I certainly don't, and I'm not one of them. If I knew I could go to a local hotel where their quality chefs could order and deliver, I would look at milestone birthdays, anniversaries, a baby shower, to say, use the rooms that they have right now, repurpose them in a different way. But you have to make these items commissionable. We are opening up our black books, our Rolodexes, to be able to say, these are customers that want to do something now. And we want to help the hotels. But we have to look at it as more than just either meeting space or a hotel booking.
Yeah. A lot of opportunities for creativity, certainly.
Huge opportunity for creativity there.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see what develops there. All right. We are about out of time. My goodness, that went very fast. We covered quite a bit. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your insights with all of us. And once again, we'd like to thank our partner, Salesforce, for working with us on this interview series. As the industry looks into the second half of 2020, you can embark on a new safe era of travel with Salesforce CRM. Look for more details on that in the story that will accompany this interview on PhocusWire. So Jennifer, thanks so much for your time.
Mitra, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.